Hey, what's up, guys? It's your boy Matt here, and we back with another episode of Matter of Fact MMA. So today we're going to be getting into a little bit of MMA news. We're going to get off into a couple of things, you know what I'm saying? Try to figure out what's going on in this MMA world. We're just going to talk about a little steaks, just a few steaks, you know what I'm saying? And I ain't talking about that prime rib, about that prime beef. I'm talking about steaks. All right. So anyway, let's go ahead. We go get off into it. I'm over here taking a little look at my little notes. You know what I'm saying? So I can deliver this to you all. So first off, let's start with the main event of UFC 290. Alexander Volkanovski steps in there to defend his featherweight championship against Yair Rodriguez, who is currently the interim featherweight champion. Let's go ahead. We'll get into a little bit about the stakes in this. So let's start with the easier of the two, Yair. So if Yair Rodriguez somehow is able to go out here and dethrone Alexander Volkanovski, from there, the world is opened up, so to speak, when it comes to featherweight. There's a whole division of challengers just waiting, but the UFC's been trying to kind of figure out where how they fit into the puzzle that is Alexander Volkanovski. But if you take Alexander out of there and you add in Yair, it's all the way open. So you can make any number of fights, any number of things you can do. And in their back pocket, they always have the rematch between Max Holloway and Yair Rodriguez, only now Yair would be the champion. So, there's any number of ways they can go. There's plenty of people in the featherweight division that they could go against, as well as they could have him step in there with Ilia Topuria. So, definitely, it's definitely some, it's plenty of ways that they can go. If Yair wins. So that's the easy one. Let's get into Alexander Volkanovski. Definitely the harder of the two. So, if Alexander wins, you got a couple of options. First off, Alexander's already made note on social media that he is watching Ilia Topuria, that he noticed him, he liked his fight, and that he would be interested in fighting him. So if Volk goes in there and he beats Yair Rodriguez, then what you're looking at is a possible matchup between Alexander Volkanovski and Ilia Topuria, which would be an outstanding fight. Or you could also see Alexander Volkanovski. Well, hold on. I take that back. There's one thing I just thought about Yair. If Yair wins, you also have to do a rematch against Alexander Volkanovski. So that's kind of like, here we go with this. You know what I'm saying? So I forgot that you have to also do that rematch. But let's also get into this. So you got Alexander, if he wins, versus Topuria. You also possibly could get Alexander Volkanovski stepping in there in a rematch with Islam Makhachev for the 155-pound strap, the lightweight championship. You could definitely see a world where that happens if he goes out here and he defeats Yair, especially because Makhachev's options at the moment really are just old Charlie Olives, old Charles Oliveira. So, if Volk goes out there and makes work of Yair, good luck, because we're throwing you back in there with Islam Makhachev if we don't do Topuria, which I don't know if Topuria's that's a tough task, you know what I'm saying? That's like trying to figure it out. It's like trying to figure out an Excel sheet and you drowning. You trying, but you drowning. You know what I'm saying? That's for all my office folk work in the office, man. I'm trying to tell you. You want to talk about losses. John Jones could not defeat an Excel sheet. Anyway, let's move on. How about this? I'm going to throw another little monkey in the wrench, so to speak. What about if Volkanovski defeats Yair? What about Aljamain Sterling? So if Aljo goes out there and defeats Sean O'Malley, he could definitely call his shot. So, and what's been rumored for a long time is he wants to step in there with Alexander Volkanovski at 145 for that championship to try to become a double champion. Now, that could still happen even if Yair wins the fight. That is yet another fight that Yair might have. But I'd say if Aljamain Sterling goes out there and defeats Sean O'Malley, What if Volkanovski defends his 145-pound championship against Aljo? That's another one. So it's kind of like, it's a crazy, featherweight, bantamweight soup, stew, so to speak. It's all mixed up, you know what I'm saying? But these are just a couple of things that was on my mind, a couple of things floating around. How about this? Let's move over to flyweight because it's going to be simple. If Brandon Moreno wins, I don't know. You know what I'm saying? I don't know who you put him in there against. There's a lot of good fighters, a lot of good contenders at flyweight, but I mean, not anything that really stands out as, oh, I've got to see that, or these two have heat. Pantoja wins. It definitely opens up the division. There's any number of challengers that you wouldn't mind seeing against Pantoja. I definitely see both guys probably going to have to tangle with Raw Dog, Brandon Royval, but, I mean, that's about it for flyweight. You know what I'm saying? I mean, outside of Raw Dog for either guy, which is just a weird statement to make. Outside of Brandon Royval for either guy, it's like I don't really, there's not a lot necessarily going on at flyweight at the moment because there's not a ton of tremendous rivalries, you can build off of. But let's move over to another major fight on UFC 290. Dricus du Plessis steps in there against Robert Whittaker. Now, this is very interesting. Now, the fight is not. We all pretty much know. We all are pretty much have, we've all retired to the fact that, Robert Whittaker, Bobby Knuckles, the Reaper, is going to go out there and do terrible things to Dricus du Plessis. So we've all pretty much established that that's what's going to happen. Where do they go from here? So let's start with Israel Adesanya as the middleweight champion. So if Robert Whittaker goes out there and defeats Dricus du Plessis like we all think that he will, this is where it gets tricky because they've got a huge show, pay-per-view later on this year in Sydney that they want Israel Adesanya to headline. So if Robert Whittaker wins his fight, unless he just goes in there and demolishes, just cold cocks, just, lunch money snatched and runs to Dricus du Plessis and it ends in the first round and Robert takes no damage. It's the fact that, Robert's not going to turn around in time to face Izzy for the middleweight championship. So Robert would definitely be the contender that is rightfully deserves the shot, but it might not work out. Who's Izzy going to fight? Enter Sean Strickland. Sean Strickland has conveniently started to talk a whole lot about Israel Adesanya, saying some things that might kind of ignite a little anger, spark a little rage in Izzy in hopes of getting him to take the fight. Sean Strickland didn't take much damage in his last fight, so there's definitely a world where right now the UFC is working towards making that fight with Sean Strickland facing Israel Adesanya later on this year in Sydney to headline. Okay, for the middleweight championship. That's one way. And Robert still would be waiting for the winner. You know what I mean? And he'd still be there. That's just kind of how that goes. But let's just say, you know what I'm saying? We had a little Steven Spielberg type magic where you can be all magical and fairy tale-ish, get your little dreams coming true. What if, in a mythical, magical world, Dricus du Plessis goes out there and defeats Robert Whittaker? This changes up a lot of things as well, because now you've got a already made fight between Dricus and Israel Adesanya, who don't like each other, who already been chirping each other over the last few months. Very interesting. Of course, Izzy's going to wash him, but, very interesting fight that you could make just based out of the beef. But Dricus would not be ready in time for the fight in Sydney. So, more than likely, you would probably say that Izzy still might step in there against Sean Strickland. Because I don't see them just randomly forcing Izzy into a title fight with Hamzat, who no one has seen him. Hamzat been on the outside of a milk carton since 1982. You know what I'm saying? We ain't seen him. We don't know where he's at. He been missing. He gone. But, so the way I'm looking at it is, one way or the other, Izzy probably will end up defending that championship against Sean Strickland because they want to fight in Sydney. So if Dricus wins, he'll get the shot later on because he's already got beef with Izzy. It's already made. It's a nasty beef. It has a lot of racial things behind it, but nevertheless, it's there. Robert Whittaker wins. I'm sure the UFC will probably pump the brakes a little bit on him getting a middleweight championship fight. They're still definitely going to go with probably Izzy and maybe Sean Strickland or maybe someone else that I'm about to throw out there in Sydney, but there it is. But how about this? What if, another thing, if Robert Whittaker wins this fight, and Izzy might not be the most interested in fighting Robert Whittaker for a third time. The UFC might not be interested in having Izzy fight Robert Whittaker for a third time. What if Robert Whittaker wins and Izzy decides now's the time, and the main event in Sydney is he goes up a weight class to face Jamal Hill for the 205-pound strap, the light heavyweight championship? What y'all think about that? You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, that's definitely in play. That's definitely in play. So we gonna see how it's all. We gonna see how it's all gonna turn out. It goes down this Saturday night, UFC 290. In the main event, Alexander Volkanovski will step in there and try to defend his featherweight championship against Yair Rodriguez. And another major fight on that show, Dricus du Plessis steps in there with Robert Whittaker at middleweight. And also Brandon Moreno tries to defend his flyweight championship against Pantoja. So we're going to see how it goes down. Those were just a couple of thoughts I had, a couple of things. I'm toying with these divisions that I just want to get out there. You know, I appreciate you guys for watching another episode of Matter of Fact MMA. We got a little bit more coverage coming to you to get ready for the show this weekend. So I'll be right back with you. Until then, peace.